And we're live. Hey guys, how's it going? Ken and Marco here from the FireOS project. Thanks so much for showing up to our Q&A, Ask a Web Developer Anything session.
We're super fired up for this. We got a list of some questions that you guys have already asked us. And hopefully in the comments down below, ask us more questions so we can sort of answer the questions that you got.
Exactly. So before we get started, who's this guy, who's that guy? We do a quick intro. Some of you might not know us. And then, yeah, we've never kind of done this before where we are in a Google Hangout on air and then we actually answer questions live. I feel a bit like this, like with the car mechanics, and people go like, hey, my car makes weird noises. What are we going to do? So we'll try to answer all kinds of questions. For some, we might not know the answer. We can get back to you, but we should be pretty good covering a lot of things, right? So let me introduce this guy. This is Ken Mizeka, really good web developer. He worked for several startups. The last one was Where.com, and then eBay, and bought it for 150 or something million.
Something like that.
Pretty cool guy. He's one of the co-mentors at the FireOS project together with me. So he really knows his stuff, helps a lot of students land jobs as web developers, and also help them build their own ideas. But before you guys think too highly of him, here's one thing that he said. And that is, now I got to think about something. I think I used my favorite one, which is don't go on the ocean with this. Because last time I went paddling in the ocean with them, lifeguards had to rescue us because that guy got to the ocean with a long, with this strong current or something.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So this is Marco, my co-founder, and Marco has led teams, development teams, as a UX product manager. He's worked for a bunch of different successful startups, companies like Jana, Pure Transfer. Pure Transfer is a tuition payment platform that has had something like $1 billion go through it.
Just $1 billion.
Just $1 billion. But before you think too highly of this guy, and the thing that I want to tell you is the reason that we were late today for this thing was because he had too many servers running on his thing, so Google Hangout kind of crashed on us.
Sorry, that was my bad.
So that's all on him.
Okay, that was a good one. I didn't expect that one. I thought you'd come back with me with the ocean. Okay, let's see. What kind of questions do we have, guys? So first of all, before we jump in, feel free. Right below there's the Say Anything box. That's where you want to type in your questions. That's where we can see it. We basically have another computer right over here, and that's where we see all the questions come in. So what's the first one?
So we got a couple on Twitter. We got some emailed to us. There were some on Meetup. But to start with, since you're here now and you asked it in the comments, I figured the first question we could get to is the regards to the coding boot camps. You said,
who asked that?
This was an awesome question by Damon Clark.
Damon, here we go. We're taking your question first.
So first question, with regards to coding boot camps, you want to take all the possible steps to make sure when you apply, you get the highest probability chances of getting accepted. Do you have any recommendations about how to prepare yourself for the application process?
Okay, so in other words, if I want to go into coding bootcamp, one of those 12-week long bootcamps that going to spit you out as a junior web developer at the end, how can I apply and what should I prep to go in?
Cool.
You want to go?
I'm happy to go.
I have also a good idea. But you go first. You go first.
Gotcha. So yeah, it's a really good question. I think actually before you apply to a lot of these things, it's important. Not everybody does it, but I think it's really valuable to know that you actually do like to code. And I think that's more important than actually getting any of the skills, is knowing that you're really going to like what you're doing. Because if coding is something that's really boring to you, or you just don't really enjoy doing it, it doesn't make sense to go through the process. So I would focus on, if you're going to prepare, to just go through some exercises and make sure that this is something that you actually like.
Like what exercises?
So there's a ton of good free exercises out there on the net, and I guess it kind of depends a little bit what specific ones to go through depending on your goals. If you're looking to land a job versus if you wanted to sort of launch your own product versus launching your own app. There's different technologies, so there's different resources out there.
Just pick any.
But if you want to, say, build a web application or get a job building web applications or something like that, one of the resources that I love to send people to is the Michael Hartle tutorial. It's a pretty good tutorial. It's free on the internet. I think it's railstutorial.org.
It's a bit challenging, but it's good.
It's pretty challenging, but it's pretty good. So you go through the tutorial. One piece of advice is one of the hardest pieces to do is to actually set up your environment, install all the tools and all the programs that you actually need.
But that's part of becoming a web developer, right? So, and Ken goes into something really good. Is before you even think applying, like know that you really like this, because you're gonna be, if you go into a boot camp, the goal is for I think almost all of the boot camps to give you a job as a junior web developer, and then you're gonna do nothing else all day long but write code. And if you spend $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000, that's what boot camps go these days. Like, to learn that skill, it's gonna be really hard if you figure out in week 4 you don't like that. And if you move into another city, for example, and quit your apartment and quit your job, you have a high opportunity cost, right? We calculated that once, right? It's like $30,000+ for like quitting your job, not having income for several months, 2 months after looking for a job, the cost of your income. So that's a high risk. Figure out if you like that first. Now, what should you do though if you want to prepare?
Yeah, so the first step is getting your machine, having all the programs and stuff that you need. So there's a couple of different ways that you can go about installing these different tools. There's a blog post, if you look on our blog, about how to set up a nitrous.io development environment. It's a lot faster. So it's sort of a little bit of a shortcut where instead of having your dev environment be running on your physical machine, I'm touching the computer over here, by the way. Instead of running it on your particular machine, you're running it up live on the internet someplace else. So all the programs aren't actually on your computer, but you have access to run all of them. So if you're going to go through the tutorial, I suggest start by just getting an account with the Nitrous.io, set up a box, and go through that process. And then you'll actually begin to use the tools, and you can start going through the tutorial there.
And my recommendation is, like, right after you've done it, build something real. Build a clone of Twitter, build a clone, I think that's in the heart of the tutorial. Build a Pinterest clone. Do something. Show them that you have something, that you already did something. And that will not only help you personally figure out if you like it, but it also will show, like, hey, I'm so committed. I learned and went out on my own and built this own application here.
Yeah,
and
so
I'll show you.
But in order to prepare yourself to get in the application process for the boot camps, a lot of people don't know about what the actual process is, and it's actually a little bit different for different boot camps out there. So if you think about it, there's some that are really selective, and then there's some that sort of will take anybody. So basically, you don't actually need to prepare that much because they'll just let you in. But then there's other ones that actually are really hard to get in. So an example of that one, I think it's App Academy. It's one of the most sort of the application process is so intense that I think they turn away about like 95% of the candidates.
You think that's true, or are they just saying that?
No, I actually believe that. And the reason why is they're one of the unique ones out there that basically they don't ask you to pay a tuition. They get their money sort of after you land a job. If you don't land a job, they get $0. So because of that, they want to make sure that everybody is really fired up. They're going to be awesome.
And they're hireable, too.
And that they're hireable as well. So they turn a lot of people away, but it's because it's a pretty cool opportunity to go through that. So preparing for that, you actually would need to have a lot more experience than going to one of the other ones out there. So like Startup Institute or General Assembly, those ones you have to prepare like much less in order to get in.
Yeah. And just on that note, it's like, because a lot of people don't know how actually the business model works, right? So you pay tuition, like you $10,000 or something, and then you, on return, if you land a job, that bootcamp gets another commission as well. That's why they're screening on the application process, because they want to make sure they make double money on both sides, right? Your tuition and then also your placement fee, your referral fee to an actual employer, and that can be sometimes more than your actual tuition. 10% of your first year salary is usually what the going rate for that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope we answered that. So Damien, you gotta give us like a thumbs up in the comments or something if that was helpful. If not, give us some thumbs down, and then we're gonna cry tonight. But then let us know what other things do we have.
Cool. So I really like this question. This question gets me pretty fired up. It was from Scatabrain on Twitter. Oh
yeah, that's a good one.
He said, in response to this particular thing, my question is, are employers looking for mean stacks skills?
Is it in demand? Like, what the heck is the mean stack, I think?
Yeah, so
that's what we should ask.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different pieces to this, and almost all the pieces get me just really fired up. That's
why you're getting so close to the monitor.
Yeah,
he's getting so fired up.
So yeah, so basically, the mean stack, what is it? So there's a bunch of different technologies that you can use to build web applications. You can use Ruby on Rails like us. Mean is just a different set of technologies that you can use to build stuff. And it consists of a database. It consists of some back-end server stuff that talks to the database, and then it connects to sort of the more like user sort of visual stuff.
Yep.
So the mean stack is a specific collection of tools. So MongoDB, so it's a specific database. Express.js, so it's a specific type of JavaScript in the back end. AngularJS, that's a specific type of JavaScript in the front end. And then there's also Node.js, which is kind of redundant because Express.js you're almost guaranteed to use Node.js. But the question is are employers looking for those particular skills?
Before we jump into this, it's like just understanding, right? When we say a stack, that's a tool, that's a bucket of tools that we're using to build web applications. So the person who came up with mean stack, right? Brilliant, right? And everyone says, I want to do the mean stack because it's so awesome, right? That's marketing. Who cares about that, right? It's about the tools and if the tools are right for the job that you want to do. And now we're looking at like, okay, that stuff may be a little cutting edge, maybe not, right? But are people looking for that? Is there demand? It's hard to tell. I think the first thing I would do is go to Indeed.com for your city, type in mean stack. People care for that.
So I am pretty sure that there's a couple of different answers to this question. So the first part of it is that I believe there's probably not a whole lot of demand for the specific mean stack. Having said that, there's the mean stack is the MongoDB, the Express.js, the AngularJS, and the Node, which is kind of redundant. I think the thing that sort of like kills the mean stack is this MongoDB sort of in front. So that particular database actually doesn't play well with sort of it doesn't play well, but it has a lot of drawbacks that when you're building web applications, most of the time you don't want to use this Mongo database. Instead, it makes a lot more sense to use a different one, something like MySQL or Postgres or something like that.
So just zooming out quickly, Mongo, SQL, all that stuff, it's not that important, basically what they do, but let's just say all the SQL stuff, that's a way of having your database kind of like organized in rows and columns, more like an Excel sheet, and MongoDB, it's all over the place, and it works completely differently.
Yeah, but basically, I think the two technologies, the Express.js is really, really great at coming up with quick prototypes and launching your idea really, really fast. That's one of the benefits of Express.js. Flip side, MongoDB is a lot harder to do, but it works well when things scale up really, really deep. When you're starting to get like tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of requests a second, that's when MongoDB really shines. So it's sort of the pairing of the MongoDB, which is really good in like scaling cases, and then the Express.js, which really isn't. It isn't really optimized for anything. So I think most employers or people who are building the technology stack in-house are probably not going to choose the mean stack because in most cases it is the wrong solution for the job. Having said all that, the notion of learning one of these things like a mean stack or Express or any of that in order to land a job, yeah, before you ask that question, you should sort of think about the fact that when you're learning how to be a web developer, you're going to be learning every single day. You're always going to be in the situation of learning, and you really can't think about like, I'm going to learn everything I need to get the job, and then I'm going to stop learning altogether. So basically, it's going to be the opposite. So basically, learn enough to get the job, and then keep learning every single day.
All right, let's move on to the next question.
No, so
you want to ask it a little more?
Oh yeah. So
okay, cool. Next question we have, it's...
No, I'm going on that one.
Okay, oh, you're going on that one.
So, yeah, so basically the fact of the matter is you're going to have to learn every single day, and you don't want to sort of actually sort of be in a position where sort of you're always thinking that you're going to know everything. But the important thing is to pick something. And if you pick the mean stack, it's fine. If you pick Rails, that's fine too. Pick something specific. Go all in, learn everything there is to know about it that you can, build some stuff, really learn it well, and then you'll find that learning new technologies down the line is a lot easier. So I don't think employers are looking for it, but screw it. Learn it anyway because it's the experience of learning it is going to be super, super valuable. Okay, cool.
Now we can move on.
Now we can move on.
Ken finished it. Great. So the other one is, who asked this? You didn't put the names here. Got this one. Do you remember what asked
this one came from Meetup.
Coming from Meetup. So basically, something. If you are consider taking a boot camp and learning a specific language, right? Which one should you pick for learning? Because boot camps teach different languages, and we can go into that different stack. And then it's like also the second question to that is the iOS, like building iOS apps. Is that actually a marketable skill, right? So I would say, like, if you pick a language going for the boot camp, if you're just looking across big thing about the boot camp landscape, I think the majority of them do Ruby on Rails, right? There's a few who do like PHP and Laravel, which is another way. PHP is like another programming language, and you're looking at, that's like a little bit more, I don't want to say old school, but it's like, it's an older programming language, and if you go to, here's the best example. If you go to a PHP meetup group, everyone's probably older than us, right? Yeah. That's kind of how you're looking at it. So you know who's kind of like the heavy users of that programming language. Versus if you go to Ruby and Rails, everyone's our age and younger. And so we're probably the old ones. Anyway, so that's kind of what you're looking at. So Ruby, and then there's also some who do JavaScript and like the Node.js or the mean stack, right? So there's a handful for. So if you want to go wide, what's in demand right now? If you think about being a web developer, you should go for what's in demand right now and not look 5 years ahead, because you're learning, you're starting out. You can't be ahead of the curve by default, right? That's not going to work. You're not going to beat somebody who has 10 years of JavaScript experience already. So basically, I'd say go for Ruby on Rails. And that's what most boot camps cover, and that's also what most startups and younger tech companies, or tech companies in general, are looking for.
Yeah, I agree with Marco. I think Ruby on Rails is the most sort of practical thing to sort of learn these days. But I'm going to sort of go back to the other answer that I had before, which is even if you choose the wrong language, like you really shouldn't have this like analysis paralysis of learning the best one or making the perfect decision. You're probably going to make mistakes down the line. But the fact of the matter is, if you really go, you learn one thing inside and out, you learn it really well, it makes it so much easier to learn everything else. So I would learn Ruby on Rails if I was in your position, but it doesn't really matter. I say learn something, put the time in, really get like a good knowledge of it, and then you'll be able to apply that knowledge to other things too. So don't worry too much because you'll find people that say like Node is terrible. You'll find people that say Rails is terrible. You'll find people that say Java is terrible. And if you kind of just wait and while everybody's sort of dissing each other, just pick one. Pick one, go all in, learn it, become really good, and then you can learn the other ones too after.
So the second part of the question was, is actually learning iOS, building iOS apps. So which programming language is that? That's Objective-C, or the new programming language that Apple just came out, Swift, right? So is that a marketable skill? I'd say it's definitely a marketable skill. And there's a lot of demand for iOS app developers, right? Now, one thing I want to say is like what a lot of people don't understand when they say, oh, I want to build mobile apps, is like that you can actually, like a lot of apps actually build their entire backend, and I mean the databases, out with Ruby on Rails. And then they build an iOS app and an Android app on top of it, just like what you see as the user. But the database is built by Ruby on Rails. So basically what that means is that you as a developer, you build still iOS apps, but you actually don't even need to touch Objective-C. You build all the backend for with Ruby on Rails. And then you have an iOS developer who uses Objective-C and connects that the iOS app to the database. And that's what a lot of companies are doing, because it's much faster choosing the technologies like that. So you don't necessarily need to go into iOS to work actively on iOS development teams.
Yeah, but I would say that when it comes to iOS, if you're looking to get a job, if you're looking to get the marketable skills, right now, Swift is really cutting edge. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's thinking about it. But the fact of the matter is, Swift is so cutting edge that a lot of companies like Codebase right now isn't in Swift. So basically, you could be the best Swift guy ever, but because all of their existing code is in Objective-C, they're going to be looking for somebody who has the skills with Objective-C. So I would say if you're going to go in and learn how to build iPhone apps, which is great. It's a wonderful skill. You can definitely get a job doing iOS dev. I would say focus on the Objective-C rather than the Swift. And I think for the next maybe 1.5 to 3 years, you're going to be way better off with the Objective-C background rather than Swift.
Yep. We have another question from Carlos Mendoza. Thank you. He's like, okay, he's an aspiring developer, right? He's pursuing right now Android, which is Java, and web development, which can be multiple languages, right? And so he's like, basically he's been between Java and Ruby actually, and so he's taken a few classes at his university this fall in Android and web development. And this question is, should just pick one and stick with it? Should do both at the same time? Is it too much? And I'd say my answer is that really depends on your university. How deep are they going, right? If you have to pick classes, I pick the one where you build something that's live and you have something where you have a real project and you're building that. That's really important that you have something to show for it. What do you think? Would you pick one or the other? Would you go for both?
Yeah, so I would probably, I have a hard time learning a lot of different things at the same time. So I find it's a lot easier for me personally. If I am going to do something, I really want to just have my blinders on and sort of just head down and learn it. So for myself, learning this stuff, I would probably pick one or the other, and the one that I'm more excited about. So if you get really fired up about these Android apps, learn that. And honestly, all the stuff that you're going to learn in this Android stuff will just apply to the web development stuff when you pick it up 6 months down the line. So I would probably just pick one or the other. But if you have the time, you have the bandwidth, and you have no problem doing both, do it. Go for it.
Just my advice would be build something real in both projects. Don't stay theoretical, right? Because you go into university, that's a huge difference between what you learn in the university. Now, I don't know which university we're talking about, but this is general speaking, and boot camps, right, that teach you practical skills that actually help you launch something and get something in front of users as fast as possible. University curriculums oftentimes neglect that, and they actually talk a lot about the theory. So I hope you don't do that, and I hope you build something that is powerful in a whole semester where you get credit for, something I don't know, something really cool, not just a Twitter clone or a simple blog or simple content management system, something good with an API integration.
Yeah, and since you're with a group of people, it would probably be pretty cool for you to sort of pair up with them. Maybe go to a hackathon or something.
Yeah, exactly. Grab five of your classmates, right? Build something together with them.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty fun. Yeah. The class doesn't really matter, right? So I would say, focus on passing the class, but get a C or something, right? Nobody cares what your grades are.
You're such bad academic advisors.
Yeah. Damn it. But yeah, I would more learn the stuff to build rather than sort of go through the classwork and stuff, because that's a lot more exciting to me.
Okay, what else we got? Guys, you got to give us more questions. Got to give us more questions. We're running out of questions. We're answering them rocket fire. That's our style. Startup speed is always fast. So let's see. We got another one. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Edwin. Hey, I don't know if you can watch the last session on your Galaxy 4, but we record this, so you can watch it later. We'll send it to you. Uncle Amigo. That's another one. It's hey, for those who can't afford a bootcamp, right? What are some free resources out there? So now let's zoom back, right? So there's coding bootcamp, there's in-person ones, $10,000 up. There's online bootcamps, which are around $5,000, right? And then there's now we're going down. All the bootcamps always have instructors or mentors, and then we also have the online resources, the video classes, right? So Team Treehouse was at $25 a month. Code Academy, that's free. That's in browser programming. Team Treehouse has a lot of quizzes that you got to solve. There's Skillshare. Is an online learning platform where you can sign up for $5 a month, and you can, I think it's $5 or $10 a month, and you can go through video coding lessons. And by video coding lessons, I mean somebody pre-recorded those videos, and you look and watch them and follow along, and basically build something, whatever they decide to build. You can't really ask questions. There's no interaction, but it gives you a really good. I think it's probably a step up, maybe from the Hardle tutorial out there, because that one might not be up to date or the latest version. And then, yeah, free resources is the Hardle, let's learn Ruby the hard way, is another one. What do you think?
I might point out that there's this this project out there that you could sort of look into called the Odin Project.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
And that's sort of a collection of different, so there's sort of a short, there's the connective glue between different tutorials, as well as sending you off to different tutorials to learn different things. It's pretty good. I would check that out if you're not gonna go to a coding bootcamp, but you want to sort of get the experience, that's going to be good. I would say stay pretty far away from Code Academy, because you can kind of get sucked into Code Academy and just sort of like endlessly go through the tutorials, and they've gamified it so it's like kind of fun. And then next thing you know, you really haven't learned a whole lot, but you've been kind of like playing around in the browser. So build real stuff. Go through the maybe the Odin project. Check out the Hurdle tutorial. Learn Ruby the hard way is really, really good. And also, if you're willing to spend a few bones, check out like a Treehouse or 1 Month Rails, or just there's video lessons out there on Skillshare. There's tons of stuff out there. And if you're only going to spend like $25 or something, it's not a huge risk. So
test it out, and just see, like, you're investing in your education here. So be willing to spend a few dollars and see what you get out of it. And most of those places have like refund policies, right? Go in, pay it, check it out, say, sorry, this isn't for me, and get your money back. And it usually works, no problems. They don't want to just take people's money and run. We got another question from Damon, which is a good one. And that's basically like, we kind of just answered that. Where else can I go to learn Ruby on the web? But basically, the other question is like, I know that when I want to have a job as a web developer, there's these quizzes that they ask me in an interview, right? For example, the coding test like FizzBuzz, and then also is like, how can I want to be ready for those kind of interview questions, and like, coding boot camps. What kind of preparation is there going? You want to take that?
Yeah. So super good question, and the
second super good question, Damon. Everyone else, step it up. Damon, see if you can ask right now.
Yeah. So maybe zooming out a little bit. If you're looking, I'm going to focus on the how to get a job aspect of it rather than getting into the boot camps. It's very similar, probably. I think it's probably going to be a lot less strict in most boot camps, as opposed to employers are going to sort of grill you and sort of ask you really hard questions. As far as how the technical interview process works at a high level, basically you'd meet a guy like me, we'd shake hands, and the first thing I would do is I would say, tell me your story. So before people prepare sort of like the technical stuff, I think it's really important to just have a coherent story about, this is what my past is, this is sort of where I'm going, and this is why I'm fired up about coding. So get a story. You heard like me introduce Marco, Marco introduced me. Come up with your own version of that. That's going to be the first part of it.
Don't mention that you drown in the ocean.
Next, they're going to send you to a whiteboard like that, and like you said, they're going to give you a problem like FizzBuzz. So they're going to say, I want you to solve a problem like X, Y, and Z. Write code on that board over there and do it. And it's really hard because basically you probably don't have a lot of experience writing code on either paper or a whiteboard. They're used to like typing it in and then immediately seeing, oh, this is actually gives me this error message over here. So I would say it's a hard skill to learn. I would find some questions, and I can give you a couple offhand of the questions that I think are really valuable for interview questions. FizzBuzz is the first one. So people don't know it. Basically, it's somebody like me would ask Marco, hey, go to that whiteboard and write a quick program that spits out fizz for the first line, buzz for the second, buzz for the third, and then goes back to fizz. So do that pattern, and you can pass it a number and make it so it does it that many times. So if I say fizz buzz of 7, it would do fizz buzz buzz, fizz buzz buzz, fizz. I think just that. Yeah.
You got it. I hope you got it.
So that's the first question, and getting comfortable with doing that on a whiteboard is something that's super valuable. From there, there's more complicated interview questions that we would ask people. So we're actually building out sort of a little web application that's going to have some of those questions. So I'll send it your way once it's live.
Our students are building that, actually.
Yeah, actually,
to prepare themselves for the interview. They're building a platform that teaches people.
Yeah, so there's different questions and just getting used to writing these algorithmic type questions. So an example of one is, actually, can I get the?
Sure. Well, now it gets really intense. You guys should ask more questions, so Ken is not going to go away from the whiteboard.
So here's my favorite interview question, and this is just how they work in sort of the gist of it. So take this image that we have. We're going to call this an image, and each one of these like boxes, we'll call it a pixel, and we're just going to have it be black and white. So build some sort of a representation of an image like this, like write code to do that, and then I want you to build a function or build code that will transform this image into an image that looks like this. So it just colors in the adjacent things. So that's like another example of a question that we would ask people to write code for. So practice, get some questions, and I would say go to like a Ruby meetup group or something. Find somebody who's been doing it a while and say, hey, can you give me like 4 or 5 interview questions? And then try to do them on paper. Don't do them sort of don't do them on the computer.
And then if we're thinking about the boot camps, right, the online boot camps, the in-person boot camps, they should prepare you for them. The good ones prepare you for them, and they actually teach you. They run you through whiteboarding exercises. That shouldn't be something that you just do once, right? It should be something that you do consistently and like you practice like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and the key is sort of ramping up in difficulty too, because that's what's really going to happen. Because they start with the Phys Plus. Phys Plus is pretty simple. This image one, that's going up a level, and then after that, it's like implement a linked list and reverse it, and that's actually really difficult. So basically, they want to watch you sort of solve the problem in your head, talk it out, and go through that whole process.
Okay, so it looks like people found the Odin project, and they're gonna all hack tonight, right? No excuses anymore. That stuff is free. Look it through and get started and build something.
For that as well, I would go to the Nitrous.io thing. So we can probably put a link in the comments to our
it's
blog.
Like the installation, right? Because that's a pain in the.
Yeah, it's a pain to install all the software. So if you use this Nitrous.io thing, you can just sort of eliminate a lot of the headaches.
Okay, we'll put that in later. But basically, do we have any more questions? I don't have anything. Did we ask anything? So there's no more coming up here. Let's see. We have no more here. So we're all done.
Cool. So I guess ask your questions. So if you have any questions, we'll.
Oh, another question from Carlos. Hold on. Give us a second. Okay. So basically, what's the timeline between learning to code and being hireable, right? And then, like, what are some resources that are available online that can help a self-taught developer land a job? Okay, that's kind of a tricky question because, yes, you need some time to become hireable if you start, let's say, like, you have a little bit of coding background, right? You know a little HTML, CSS, and you maybe have built your first web application, like a simple one. You've gone through the Hartle tutorial, or you hacked around on the Odin project a little bit, right? But how much time is there? And that really depends how fast you learn and what kind of support system you have. Let's say you go all on your own and you go through free guides only, and you go to the you go through a free guide, you learn something, you have some error messages, and you get stuck, and then your best bet is to like either call a friend that you know. If you don't have a friend, you wait to the next meetup group from the Ruby group. You ask for help there. You go to like other developer meetup groups. You ask for help, and you kind of piece this all together, and that will make that time really long. Like, what do you think, a year?
Well, it's different really for everybody, but I would say the first thing is get a friend who's just a little bit better than you, or awesome. It doesn't matter so long as they can help you with the problems that you have. And it probably wouldn't be that hard to find somebody who's willing to help you out. Go to the Ruby groups, get people's email addresses that are sort of willing to help you out, and if you run into problems, ask them. There's also like websites like AirPair where you can pay like $15 like every 15 minutes or something of a developer's time, and you just pay for the time and they'll talk to you there. So you can do something like that, but the time-wise of how long that's going to take, it's going to vary for everybody. I would say make sure you can build something on your own outside of the tutorials. So do something with zero guidance, and the more complicated it is, the better feeling you'll have, the more confidence, and you'll be able to just rock the interview. Basically, it's not getting a job is actually having the skills is important. Whiteboarding, solving problems like this, super important. Yep. And then also selling yourself and convincing people, I am an awesome hire, you should hire me. So believe it or not, like skills about like how do you send out like how do you look for a job? So like what we suggest, if you're going to look for a job on like a job board or something like that, really what you should do is you should find 30 to 40 different jobs and blast them all out the same day. Just really hammer everybody, and then that way you'll sort of have like a few leads coming in, and you can just sort of do.
You want to be busy. You want to get like 20 returns to emails or outreach or phone calls every single day. You want to be the guys like, sorry, I can't take the interview tomorrow or the day after because I'm already full with 10 interviews. That's kind of the position you want to be in. Then you'll land a job.
Yeah,
that's how it is with every job.
And the time is going to vary for everybody. Yeah. I can tell you from personal experience, I had a bunch of coding background before I got my first job as a web developer, but I actually only had maybe like a month and a half of self-taught, just playing around, building like 1 or 2 simple projects before I landed my first job. So basically, it's all about the confidence, it's all about the selling, and can you solve problems like this, which is wildly different than the type of stuff you're going to do on a daily basis. So it'll vary for everybody. I would say spend more time than you think is worth doing this stuff, solving these sort of like technical interview problems. It's going to pay off in the long run for you.
Cool. All right, we got some more questions. Every time we yell more questions, it takes about 2 minutes. We're in a slight delay here, I think, and then we see them in. So, what's that? Lens D, aspiring Android developer. Okay, she's doing an Android apprenticeship online right now. That's what I said, the online coding boot camps. And is it really feasible to get a decent junior web developer position afterwards? And what should my starting salary are? Right. One thing I noticed is like, there's only a few technical questions so far. It's all about careers and where they should go. It's really interesting. Like, you guys are all really engaged and you're already learning, and
yeah,
so that's very good.
It's pretty cool. Like, we came up with this idea because like we would put on these virtual sessions and we'd have it be about like how to land a job as a web developer, and all the questions at the end would be like wildly different. I want to launch my own product. How should that? What should I do? Like Angular. And we were just like,
today we thought we get like error messages or something.
Yeah, right? We have no idea. So this is fun, this sort of engaging with you guys.
So what do you think? Let's answer that question, right? It's like, is it really feasible after going through like a 3-month boot camp? That really depends on the boot camp, right? It's like, what are they going to teach you? How good are they? Are you gonna have a good repository of code that you can point to? Have you worked on a team project together? Like, do you have a good mentor at that apprenticeship that actually teaches you the skills? Like, does the mentor take the time to run you through these kind of exercises and trains you for them and really prepares you, or they just stick in straight to the curriculum and they never go left and right? And that's really like what will make the difference if you're hireable or not. Besides all the other points that Ken said, like, are you able to present yourself? Are you able to like convince somebody like, I'm a good team player, I have impact on day one?
Yeah, and can you even like basically, yeah, can you really convince people that you actually are really excited about that? Because people love working with people who just love what they do every single day. If you are somebody,
with small teams, right?
Yeah. If you're somebody that like seems like, yeah, maybe you have the skills, but you're phoning it in because basically you used to be a customer service person and you hated it, so you figured you'd have more fun if you just kind of grinded away at a keyboard all day. That's not the type of person. People want to work with somebody who's like, I am so excited to build this app, and I don't care if I get a job. I am like, if your mentality is, I don't care if I get a job, I am going to keep learning how to code, and I'm going to keep building stuff, and I am just really fired up about that, you are somebody who actually will get a job. If you're somebody that's just kind of going through the motions, going through the boot camps, spending your time going through the lessons, not really excited about it, you're going to have a really hard time because you're not going to be all fired up when you talk to them.
The emotion doesn't come through, right?
And the other thing I should say is basically like going through like programs like this, you have to know that sort of like it doesn't matter. It's like university, boot camp, anything. You're really not like entitled to anything, and it's not ever like, oh, of course you can get a job, you can just walk in and do this because you have some sort of a degree. You're always going to have to prove yourself, you're always going to have to interview, and so long as you have the confidence, you're really excited about this stuff, and you're willing to sort of like, and you would keep doing this stuff even if they didn't pay you for it, then you're going to get a job. But that's sort of it. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, yeah.
If you're as excited as Ken, just explain how to do that. Then you're in a good spot. So the other thing was about starting salary. I don't know which market you're in, right? But I mean, that's a really tricky one. I think like, here's what I do. I'd go to a meetup, Android developer meetup, professional Android developers in your area, meet them, talk about that. Hey, with my experience, what should I talk to 10 of them and ask them? They will give you the feedback, right? There's people who work at agencies. There's people who work for startups. There's people who work for startups that just raised a little bit of money. There's people who work for startups that raise a lot of money. That all makes difference in how much they're willing to pay. You could be working for a big tech company that already is like publicly traded. that all makes difference, like what is required from you and how much they can pay. So answering that is a pretty hard one. You should probably make, I don't know, more than like one thing is you coming out of a boot camp, what you need to be careful at is there's a misaligned incentive here of the boot camps, and that is basically like if they make commission of finding you a job, right? They get 10% of your first year's salary. Their motivation is, and I don't know what your boot camp is, but that's just like I think rational human behavior is to get you a job. And if that job pays you $50,000, they make $5,000. If that job pays you $60,000, or you say like, I'd rather want to wait, maybe I get this one and it gives me a bit more. That $10,000 is only $1,000 different for them because 10% of 50,000, 60,000 versus for you, it's a huge difference.
And it's a huge risk for them, right? Because one of the things that boot camps care about is we talk about this a lot, but the job placement rates that like a lot of these different things tout. If they can just get like a bunch of like $40,000 like a year jobs and they can just push people to them, even though they'd be like easily hireable for like 70K, that gets their numbers higher. So basically, don't worry too much about the job placement rates at these different like boot camps, stuff like that, because there's all sorts of little tricks that people use to make the numbers seem higher than they are. I would say a fair salary starting out, junior developer, not a whole lot of experience, something in like the probably 70K range would be sort of a fair compensation. I think if somebody offered you 65K, it would be like it would be understandable. If they're offering you like 50K or something, at that point I would probably be like, hey, I think I'm actually worth a little bit more. I wouldn't negotiate too much of the salary. You can. It's awesome to sort of negotiate that stuff, but I would just be really fired up to get the first experience that you get, because landing your first job as a like programmer is the hardest job that you will ever land, because you have no relevant like coding experience in the past. So it's going to be really hard to sort of like compare you, look at your story, all this stuff. As soon as you're like, I was building Android apps over at this company over here, people will be like, oh, you have experience. You're not a junior developer anymore. You're sort of a mid-level one. So it's a lot easier getting jobs. So I would just focus on getting the first job. I would try not to get taken advantage of, so make sure you're getting paid fairly. But I wouldn't push it too much and negotiate the salary. That's just me.
It's not about the paycheck. It's all about the team and the people that you work. If you have a place where there's somebody that really appreciates you and will train you, that will pay off for the next 10 years, rather than like $10,000 more a year in salary. But don't get taken advantage of. We have a few more questions, and we only have about 5 more minutes, and then we want to wrap this up. So here, Slayer Darth. That's like really like Darth Vader.
It's a technical question.
It's a technical. How to make your websites more mobile friendly if it's primarily made for PC? I have 2 words for you. Go to Twitter Bootstrap. Grab that front-end framework that will help you make your website look really good on mobile and tablets and integrate their responsive grid system. So just go to getbootstrap.com and check them out. That will help you make your website responsive really quickly. If not, then you look into responsive websites or mobile-first design and learn how to write that CSS code from scratch.
There's also a chance that there's a one-liner that you can just add to your website that happens to make it look good. So it might make sense to test that out.
It's primarily designed for mobile. Go to Get Bootstrap, you find both. You find the one-liner that Ken mentioned.
Yeah, so do a quick search for the mobile meta tag. Try just adding it to your page and see it, like deploy it out or send it live to the internet, look at it. That one-liner actually does quite a bit. So it's the mobile meta tag. Do a Google search. You'll find it on Stack Overflow. Copy, paste that line, and fingers crossed it'll look a little bit better. But if that doesn't, like you might have to redo the entire thing. Use something like Twitter Bootstrap.
It's not redo. You have to redo.
You have to redo the entire thing.
So you have to do a little bit of work, change your style sheets and everything, and get Twitter Bootstrap in there. But it's worth it, because if you look at your traffic stats and you see like, what do we have right now? 40–50%. Look at your page in mobile, right? You want to optimize.
The other thing we can point out is if you look at something like ratbootstrap.com, you can pay like $9 or something, and they'll give you like just some really, if you have like either just like a portfolio page or just a simple website, like a 1 or like maybe 5 pager, ratbootstrap.com, you pay $9, you plug in your stuff, and all of a sudden you have this awesome looking website. Yep. So check those out too.
Rat Bootstrap, I recommend that. There's even themes for $4 on there. Okay, what do we have? Okay, Slayer Darth, online resources. You missed that. Go down the page. There's the Odin project. There's Ruby the Heart Whale. Learn Ruby the Heart Whale. Learn Ruby the Heart Way, and the Michael Hardle Ruby on Rails tutorial. But we talked about that already. Damon asked another one. Are we really recommending like cloud-based like IDEs like Nitrous over like the native one on your computer? It's like, my answer is no. Use your own computer. That's way better. But installing that stuff is hard. So we're saying like a quick and easy way, a quick and dirty way to start is like go cloud-based. You have that up and running in like a few minutes, like 5-7 minutes. But going on your own computer, installing everything, that will take time. So reserve at least a solid afternoon for that.
Yeah, the thing I should point out is when you're just starting out, you're in a position where you're trying to install the tools. You have no idea what they do. You have no idea if it's actually working or you've made a mistake. And then also sort of like you don't know how to check it. So basically, if you can sort of bypass that, use a cloud-based IDE for like the first little bit, you learn what all the tools are, you learn how to interact with them, and you'd be more aware of, is this actually broken? So I suggest trying out Nitrous, building out like one simple app, going through a tutorial, become comfortable with the tools, then add it to your machine. I would not suggest, some people do, but I would not suggest using that for your primary development machine if you're spending 8 hours a day for 4 months doing this.
Don't do that. We did that once with high school students because their computers were all locked, so we're in Nitrous. With all other students, we do the real tools, same tools that you use on the job, and that's on your own computer.
Unless we're doing sort of like a 4-hour like just workshop or talk or something. In that case, the time really matters. So we just use the Nitrous.
David Cho asked another question about what sites are built mainly in Ruby on Rails and in e-commerce sites as well. So who the heck uses Ruby on Rails, right? Because there's ways to see that if you're technical when you go to a site or web application, right? So Airbnb is a good one, right? That e-commerce, yeah, I mean, they're selling you, it's a marketplace, they're selling you these routes, right?
I think Shopify is the go-to though. Yeah, e-commerce, they're just, first they're killing it, right? And then the second thing is they're basically the platform that everybody else is using for their e-commerce. So
that's a good one.
Yeah, so also like other big companies like Basecamp, that's a Ruby on Rails thing.
Groupon.
Yeah.
Big. That's e-commerce too. Man, everything is e-commerce.
People want money. But basically, a lot of people freak out about sort of like the scaling issues with Ruby on Rails, and I think that's where sort of a lot of these questions come from. If I start getting sort of traffic, if I get published in a blog or something, is my site gonna go down, and am I gonna be out of luck? Ruby on Rails is actually pretty good at scaling. So if you're like
Groupon can handle it. You get like millions a day.
Yes, so I would not worry too much about the scalability issues about Ruby on Rails until you get into the like 100 requests a second sort of range, which is just like, if you have that problem, I want to be you.
Exactly. 100. What Ken means by the 100 requests is like 100 people, 100 unique users are hitting, oh, not quite, but 100 people basically knocking on your door every single second, right? That's quite a lot of traffic. And then, yeah, well, there's more things that we need to do. You have that problem? Call us. Okay, what else do we have? A few more. Here, Alistar Rossini. Hey, from the UK. Just joined us. It's got to be late over there. He asked, for typical web designer developer here in the UK, you know, it's kind of hard convincing people to still actually pay for the services of web design and development because there are a lot of do-it-yourself solutions like Weebly or Squarespace,
yep.
Right? Or you can buy themes on Wrap Bootstrap, and if you know a little bit about hosting, you can go it up yourself. And I think my recommendation is for you is like, you know, be ahead of the curve. Like, keep learning. Like, if you have those skills that are now replaced by those platforms, right? Why don't you add a little bit more to it? Like, learn how to do. If you're already a good front-end designer and you can make things look really good, if you learn how to deal with databases, you all of a sudden like are so much more marketable because you can build really good things that look good, but they're also now really functional because they're not static websites.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is people really pay for like niche skills, right? So like instead of like a designer, a developer, it's kind of broad and it's pretty like wide open. On the flip side, if you look to do something like drop the development side, focus 100% on the design side. You're going to do zero coding. You're going to use Photoshop, and you're just going to build like mock-ups that just blow people away. That is so marketable. So, or if you're going to be a developer, really like own it, right? Go like forget about the design stuff because that's sort of outside the realm of sort of what you're focusing on. You can focus on, you know what, I'm going to build like complicated database stuff. I'm going to really just be great at that narrow skill. Sort of having the broadness of sort of being a developer, a designer, and like using all these different tools, it makes it hard to sort of just really be awesome at it because it's hard to be awesome at everything. You have to pick like one or two things to do. So I would choose that, and I would also probably, yeah, choose one of those.
Yeah, cool. Okay, it's pretty much time to wrap up. A few people asked us like, is this video available later? And actually, Lens D already answered that question. Yes, it's available later. Thumbs up for you. Player Darth asked one more question. Let's pick that. That's the last one, and then we're going to wrap this up. Is if I wanted to create my own website from scratch, would something like the Adobe Creative Suite products be a good way of doing so? You can use the Adobe ones. We don't use them. We use Sublime Text too.
I would stay kind of far away because you're going to have like a couple of issues, right? You can build something with like the Adobe CS, and then you're going to have to sort of figure out how to host it and stuff anyway. I might even go back to sort of what we were talking about before. If you just learn how to use like a Squarespace and you just pay like $5 a month or something for somebody else doing all the work, I would probably do that.
Yeah,
or WordPress or something like that.
I think he wants to learn it from scratch.
Oh, gotcha.
So another thing, like, you don't just want to have some, but it's like you want to learn it from scratch. So, you know, go and email me afterwards. We have like one of these free tutorials that teaches you how to make a website from scratch in a couple hours. I'm happy to email that out to you, so you can learn how to do one. You learn the basic techniques there, and then that's a platform for you to move on and do the next step.
In that sort of regard, if you're looking to learn the skill, I would stay very far away from Adobe, even farther than I said before, because that isn't going to teach you sort of how to build how websites work. It's going to teach you how to like drag around stuff. So stay away from that if you're looking to learn.
The other thing is if you go to getbootstrap.com, they have some example layouts there. Copy that. Use a text editor. That's where you write a code. Use Sublime Text. It's a pretty popular one. Use anyone. Use that template from Get Bootstrap and play around with it. Adjust it. Figure it out. You know, the more time you put into it, the better. Cool.
This was a blast, guys. This was super fun. So the one favor that we'd like to ask you is go to our Facebook page and like us. So if we have more of these, you'll find out about them, and you can ask us questions down the line. So we'll put it in the comments, facebook.com/thefirehose project. Like us so we can send you more stuff, answer more of your questions, engage with you like this, because this is super fun. I had a blast.
I love answering those questions. Really good questions. So guys, 2 thumbs up for all of you. And yeah, we see you guys next time around. Take it easy.